my love of food has always been there. My parents are great cooks. They've been great entertainers. This sort of, it's almost the conduit to every joy in life is centred around the table and cooking.
Welcome everybody to Dirty Linen's summer series. Over the holiday period, we are having different kind of catch-ups with food people that we love and want to hear from, but we're having a little bit of a summer spin on it and hearing from those people about a time when they realised how important food was to them. Our guest today is someone whose food I have enjoyed so much over the years and whose beautiful energy I always love intersecting with. Brigitte Hafner is chef and owner of Tedesca Osteria at Red Hill on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria. It is going to be a good summer if I get my feet into beneath a table in the restaurant. Brigitte, welcome back to Dirty Linen.
Oh, thank you, Dani, and thanks for having me back. Always great to chat to you and love what you do. So thank you very much and excited to be here.
Well, I love what you do. I love the spirit that you bring to your food. It's so produce focused and so earthy and grounded and just makes me feel good about the art of putting food on the table and makes me even feel like there's an art to gathering around it.
There is, actually. When I look out to the dining room, and I know there are a lot of people that really dress up and they are there to celebrate, and there's sort of a waiting something, when you go to someone's house for a lunch or a dinner, something happens. And I love that moment when, it just all starts to spill out. It starts off, it's very quiet, and then, the atmosphere builds, people start appearing at tables, and then very soon there's this lively atmosphere and people are talking and immersed. And that is a special thing that you can create with, food, obviously, the conduit and the drinks and everything, but the environment and sort of creating that is a lot of fun. It really is.
And your fire-focused kitchen at Tedesca is very much in the restaurant. Like, how does that energy of the dining room, I suppose, ebb and flow through what you do at the kitchen end of things?
Yeah, well, actually, lots of guests come up mostly at the end of their meal, and they talk about that. I mean, it's very theatrical. It's very nice for a diner to sit there and just sort of gaze up. I'm literally in the restaurant now because it's the only quiet space I could find, and it's all unpacked. But I'm looking over at the restaurant at the hearth, and I'm going, gosh, it is, it's captivating because it's this big, dark, black wall with fires would be ablazing, and there's just three of us just gently moving around, and the food's just coming out of there, and there's this hub of activity with the front of house just gently bringing things and moving all the time. So there's a lot of, it's a ballet. There's a lot of things in motion. There's a lot of activity up there, but it's quite gentle at the same time. It's not this fast and furious service, which is something I never wanted to do. And I think it's definitely adds to the atmosphere. And some people are just really curious, and they come up and they talk to you, and they stand there, and some of them even come into the kitchen and go, well, how do you do that? And this is how I do my grill. And it's a very nice thing that people can connect with us that they probably wouldn't normally do in a restaurant kitchen.
Yeah, so true. And I love that image of people coming perhaps more later in the meal. I suppose, perhaps things slow down and they've got time. But I think also there's a sense of, finding the courage to come up to the kitchen. So often I think that can be seen as an intimidating space, or you just wouldn't want to interrupt. But there is such a sense of welcome that, from the beginning when you arrive at the restaurant, but I think it really seeps into your bones by the time the meal is over.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I think also what we notice now, as the weather's so beautiful and the garden's so lush, people are wandering around in the garden as well. So that's just another activity between courses, and that adds to the atmosphere. I think, they'll go out there and they'll just go, wow, what is growing? And Sally, our gardener, is out there and talks to them. So that's a lovely other thing that's happening at the moment that I notice.
Yeah, well, it really, I guess, embeds that sense of connection between the earth and the table that you do so well there. I mean, Brigitte, you've been cooking professionally for a while now. Like, do you love it? Like, is it something that you
Yes.
enjoy, or is it
Oh,
work?
joy. There, work is really not a word I use a lot. It's not work. It's my life. I love this. I can't wait to get here. I don't stop thinking about it. What am I going to cook tonight? Whether it's at home for the family or here, it's a very fluid thing. This joy that this place brings me is endless, and there's endless projects still to be done on it. So I have done this for a long time, but I think what I love most about this aspect of cooking is the freedom that I've been able to have since I've created such, a restaurant space. It has, I cook for 40 people, and we cook by fire, and I grow things. I mean, God, it doesn't get better than that. It's really ideal.
Oh, I just love hearing you talk about it. So, Brigitte, this perhaps brings us nicely to the nub of this conversation, which is about you sharing a moment when you realised how important food was to you. Have you got a story up your sleeve for us?
Yeah, I'm glad that question was posed so that I could think about it because, gosh, the day I stepped into Kylie Kwong's kitchen, the first day I ever started was a moment I had that. I have had many moments where I've gone, oh my God, this is it. But they just have kept escalating, like my love of food has always been there. My parents are great cooks. They've been great entertainers. This sort of, it's almost the conduit to every joy in life is centred around the table and cooking and expression of love for family, all of that, all of it. But I think when I came back to Melbourne, I'd been away for 10 years, done a lot of travel, started my apprenticeship. I was working for Jacques Ramond, and I was still a very fresh apprentice, but deeply immersed in this is my career. I'm just obsessed with everything to do with food and reading everything I could get my hands on. But then I met James Broadway, who was doing the slow food movement, and I became very quickly involved and with all of their events and just the whole thing. I sort of went, oh my God, there is so much more to this. Up to that point, I'd really been in restaurants, and you'd order something and it would arrive and all of that, and it's pretty standard. But what slow food did was it broadened my horizon, and it made me deeply interested in the things like farming, food politics, food culture, and all of those sort of things. And I really started to go on a different path, on a deeper path about food. And I think that's something that, that gelled this relationship because we've been friends and work buddies ever since, and that's been great. And also this connection to probably the deeper things that go around food and how we grow food and how we're allowed to make food, all of those things became very, very interesting for me.
Wow, I love that. So, I mean, for people who don't know slow food, I feel like it was a big part of the conversation, I don't know, 20 years ago, and it really launched a number of conversations and different groups and different ways of being. But I suppose for people who don't know it, it's a global movement that it was really to, I guess, honour tradition, but also, or is a global movement to honour tradition and connect people to the source of their food. And I guess it prompted a lot of restaurant chefs to connect more with farmers and the way that food was grown. I mean, do you think, am I getting it? Is that how you saw it as well?
Yes, and that as well as, probably the protection of, food traditions, which perhaps in Australia wasn't quite as relevant. But what Carlo Petrini was really doing in Europe was, if you can imagine yourself in Italy buying, at those markets, buying those incredible salamis that would one day not exist anymore because the laws around curing these salamis would be changed, all of these sort of the whole sterilisation and industrialisation of our, food systems would really basically kill all these amazing traditions that when we go over to Europe, we absolutely love and what makes it so special. And of course, in Australia, we don't have that. But for example, I remember the day where Leo Donati could not make his famous cotechino anymore in the same way. He's been making this cotechino, which is just like the best I've ever tasted for, as long as, or how long's his butcher been open, 30 years, whatever, and so divine. But then the laws changed, and now he has to, when he makes it from the mincer and mixes it together, he has to go into a cryovac and then in the cool room, which of course is completely different. Doesn't get to ferment at the same low temperature outside in a cool area. Anyway, that for me sort of was like, and these things were starting to change and I could see what was coming, that, like there's things that you cannot do anymore, or like the whole raw milk cheese thing, all of those things was wrapped up with slow food. The biodiversity, all of these apples, have you ever been to Petty's Orchard and realised that there's just hundreds of varieties of the most incredible apples? But, well, the supermarkets are defining what we eat. So I guess that's what sort of slow food was really trying to do. And for Australia, it was trying to sort of begin a conversation where we might be able to have a little bit more say in our food sovereignty and have some influence. I mean, if it wasn't for farmers markets, we probably wouldn't even know there was pasture-reared pork out there, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So do you feel that in the restaurant now that you and James, who's a co-owner of the restaurant, that you are enacting the vision that was, or the seed that was planted in those early days?
Oh, definitely. I mean, what happened was, for me, just to put it in context, I was a young, excited chef, and then, we would work with someone like a pork farmer who was very passionate about this rare breed of pork, which really couldn't enter the market in any way for all of these issues. Small farmer, abattoirs and all of that's difficult, and no one really knew about it. So slow food became this conduit where, introduced Christine Ross's large black pigs to Guy Grossi, for example, and it was like, wow, this pork is so special. It's not like pork that dry, tasteless, tight, bland kind of thing. It's dark meat, sweet, fat, molten, amazing, so beautiful. Why don't we know about this pork? Well, there's not a lot of pork breeders that have these small rare breed pigs and all of that. So I think that when slow food sort of, I suppose, wound down or it just dissolved, I was very upset about it, as was James. And I thought this is really important that we preserve these things and really pursue a better outcome for these small, passionate farmers. So I sort of thought to myself, there is really not a lot of hope in where the government's going. We've always had, I feel, a reasonably industrial approach to our agriculture. And I thought, well, we've got to do our own thing. I really sort of, in my own mind, I suppose, I set about to create my own universe. I'm like, well, we're going to grow our own stuff. And that, from that moment, I sort of slowly started to work towards, I suppose, what we do now, which is I do grow everything here. Not everything, but I grow my own stuff biodynamically, and I have created this little universe on our farm and in the restaurant, and it's a lovely little loop. Yeah, that was quite influential.
Oh, wow, it's such a big story, and it's so important that you're enacting it in a small way. And I think it's beautiful and it's important, but it's also a shame that it is its own loop. It's an example, like people are very inspired by it, but it does it does make me sad that, you know, you're doing it almost as a response to the broader picture, which is less hopeful than the one that you recreate every day.
But I think people, I'm not sure. I think that it's, I see more and more young people returning to the farming. There are more people that are, you know, wanting to be small farmers, and I think it will change because there's a deep need that's in all of us, I think, to return to a place of connection and the earth and to grow things, and particularly after COVID. So, you know, I wonder about that, Dani, but I do think that it's, you know, reasonably positive out there.
That's so good. I love that. I think there are so many good things happening, but I think it's also really hard for small farmers, particularly small meat producers. And there are, you know, a lot of conversations going on about that now, as there should, with the closure of abattoirs and, you know, people such as Tammy Jonas opening her own abattoir. But, you know, it's been such a hard slog. So it's a mixed picture, I would say. But, yeah, I'm sure we can definitely agree that there's a lot of hope and a lot of positive action, but in a landscape which doesn't necessarily support it wholeheartedly. But yeah, thank you for creating the magic that you create. Brigitte, summer means tennis, and I'm such a big fan of the Australian Open. I know that you're part of the incredible hospitality offering there for the 2025 Australian Open. Tell us what you're up to.
Well, I mean, this is pretty epic for us, but we are doing the last week of the finals, which is an incredible privilege. We are so excited, sort of like excited in a, you know, it's thrilling for us. We will be doing the dinners over at the Glass House. We're working with a big group and it's going to be pretty spectacular. So this has been a big, almost redesign of what Tedesca does, because obviously we don't do 500 people in an hour and a half. But that's what we'll be doing over there. And we're really embracing, I don't know, the summer, the privilege of being at a world level and how the world comes to Melbourne and we are out there. Yeah.
That's so exciting. I'm just trying to transpose Tedesca with views of the hills to that very urban setting. But I think the Australian Open is such an ambitious event, and, you know, seems to get more ambitious every year. And I'm sure you'll all pull it off together. Do you know, like, are you growing specifically for it, or is it produce coming from elsewhere on such a scale? Like, how's it all working?
So we can't grow on that scale, but we have growers. There's a really great organic grower out in Gippsland called Five Tails, and Mikey, he's already got the list and he's growing. So we have sort of, because there's such a long lead-in time, we developed menus. We've worked out what we can do ahead of time. So there's some preserving that we'll be doing, you know, in the now, but most of it's not from here. So that's been the really interesting thing for me, is when they asked me if I would do this, my first response was, of course, well, no, I mean, that's not possible. But then I thought about it and I thought, why not? I mean, this could be amazing. So, of course, I had to think very differently, and then I was like, this is really exciting. So we've taken all the principles of all the flavours that sort of we love in Tedesca, things that dance around Sri Lanka and the Middle East and Mediterranean, and we've sort of threaded that into a menu that is designed for like this kind of Grand Prix kind of experience where it's just in, bang, and out. So that's been probably one of the biggest challenges I've had recently, but I've just loved it. So anyway, we haven't pulled it off yet, but we are working on it.
I'm so excited for you. What a great challenge, and what a great experience for the diners to have that. Yeah, I'm sure you'll Yeah, you'll encounter a lot of new customers and people who become obsessed with getting a booking down at Red Hill, as are so many other people. Brigitte, good luck with it, and thank you so much for sharing your stories with us for this special summer series. Absolutely delighted to have you as part of it, and see you soon.
Thanks, Dani. Always great to chat. Have a great summer and hope to see you there.
Definitely. This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.